When you are getting a divorce, you're having a fresh start. So you are probably going to need to apply for either a new mortgage. Credit heals. It rebuilds. That's the beauty of it. The lower you can. So if you've got a credit card that is your credit limit is $10,000, try to keep it below 5,000. Here is going to be a good list of best practices as it relates to your credit in a divorce situation. One of the things to know is that your credit score is only important when you're going to use it. So I have people that talk, they walk around and they're like, I've got an 830 FICO score, and that's great. And the only time that that matters is when you're actually going to use it, because one catastrophe could happen and your 830 FICO score plummets down to the low sixes or high fives. And the fact that you had an 830 credit score last week is completely irrelevant to what it is today and when you go use it. So that's one thing to just keep in mind. The other thing is that as it relates to divorce, you're using your credit more than someone who's just going throughout life and everything is pretty stable. Why? Because when you are getting a divorce, you're having a fresh start. So you are probably going to need to apply for either a new mortgage, or you're going to be applying for a rental property. They pull your credit in both of those scenarios. You may need to apply for new credit so that you can pay for your divorce, or you just want your own set of credit cards. Obviously, they pull your credit for that. You may need a new car. Even things like getting a new cell phone service, getting utilities, all of these things, they do pull your credit report. Another one is insurance. So you use your credit when you are in the midst of and coming out of a divorce. It's very common. The other thing that's very common is credit is trashed in a divorce. It's just unfortunately a casualty of divorce. So, you know, you can feel like you've got this big stigma because you've always prided yourself in really good credit. But through the divorce, just everything, for whatever reason, your credit really took a beating. Maybe you couldn't afford to make your payments because of the cost of everything. Maybe out of spite, you or the other side decided not to make payments because you just wanted to trash the other person's credit, and because just expenses get out of hand in a divorce case, and just things get overlooked. You have so many moving parts and pieces to untangling your life. It could be easy to overlook when payments are due on things. So for all these reasons, it's just not uncommon to see this. But here's what you need to know: credit heals. It rebuilds. That's the beauty of it. So it can get harmed and it can, plummet quickly, but it also can rebuild. So what rebuilds credit is the moment that the negative reporting stops. Let's say you're late on your house payment, car payment, credit card payments. Well, the very next month that you start making payments on time, credit starts to slowly rebuild. You would be shocked at how much of an improvement your credit can make even in 12 months and in 2 years. You'd be shocked at if you're very intentional about it. So a couple of things to keep in mind. Number one is that when you are getting a divorce and maybe the court has ordered one of you to be responsible for, they've assigned debt to one of you. Let's say that there's a credit card and you're both on the credit card, and the court has assigned that debt to, say, your ex-spouse. If your name is still tied to it and the ex-spouse has not done what they needed to do to have your name removed, or if your name can't be removed, then it is still going to show up on your credit report regardless of what the court order says. So the court might order a hold harmless. They might order that spouse to be responsible for making all the payments. But at the end of the day, you've got to see what still ultimately is being put on your credit report. If they default on that, it's probably going to come back and bite you. So you want to make sure you sign up for credit monitoring. There are free ones out there like Credit Karma. I prefer to use Experian has one, and I think it's about $19 a month. That's what I use. There also are some that come through your credit card companies that you can sign up for as benefits and whatnot. I don't know that there's one over the other that I would recommend, but regardless, you should always make sure that you've got credit monitoring so that you are notified should there be a change in your score or should the debt increase. Again, the other side has been awarded the responsibility of the debt, and maybe it's an American Express account, and then they go and charge it up. Let's say that they go move into a new place and they've just charged $20,000 in furniture. That's going to get reported on your account and it's going to look like you owe $20,000 more on your debt to income ratios. So it can be, you really want to try and sever credit as much as you possibly can. And it may be that you have to pay accounts off. It may be that you need to do some sort of a debt consolidation or whatever, but you really want to untangle your name from anything that is a joint credit account, whether it is student loans or personal loans, mortgages, car loans, credit cards, anything that shows up on your credit report that is in both of your names. You want to sever those. So number one is sign up for credit monitoring. Number two is severing joint accounts. Number three, which sort of goes along with number two, is removing you or your spouse as an authorized user. So that's also not uncommon where maybe you've gone and gotten a credit card, but you made your spouse an authorized user. You want to sever that because it can still impact both of you. As it relates to rebuilding your credit, try to keep your credit balances below 50%, the lower you can. So if you've got a credit card that is your credit limit is $10,000, try to keep it below 5,000. So for whatever reason, that 50% mark is really what starts to impact your credit score negatively. So if you owe 9,000 on a 10,000, you've only got $1,000 in available credit, your score is going to be lower than it is if you only owe 5,000. So first goal would be to try to get your credit availability to your actual debt, get those to be a lower ratio. Another thing you want to be mindful of, don't necessarily cancel your accounts. If you've got a credit account, maybe it's a credit card you just never use, it can help your credit by keeping it open, because let's say it's paid off but it's got, say, a $10,000 availability on it. It can help you because when your credit gets pulled, your available credit ratio is going to be high, and so that's a good thing. So you don't necessarily just want to close accounts just for the sake of closing accounts. Now, you definitely want to sever those joint accounts, and if that means you have to close it, then it means you have to close it. I would take that risk all day long. You want to keep your payments current as much as possible, even if it means that you have to, just make your minimum payments. Try to get yourself to a point where you can do that. You can be late. One late payment can drop your score by 100 points or more, just depending. So you really want to do what you can. Here are the 5 factors that make up your credit score. So your payment history is 35% of your score. Payment history. So you want to try, the very first thing you should do is just try to make sure that these payments get made on time. That's number one. Number two are your credit balances, what we just talked about, which is how much you owe relative to your available credit limit. So you want to try to keep those below 50%. And you also want to keep your total under 50%. So if you've got between your Amex and your Nordstrom's card and your Chase Visa, maybe you've got $50,000 available cumulatively to you. You want to try to keep that, your actual debt, less than 25,000. That's an example. Your length of credit history is 15% of your score. That's why if you've had a credit card, maybe you had a credit card before you even got married, and you've had this credit card for 20 some years, that's a really good thing because it shows that credit history. So you don't necessarily want to close it if you don't have to, just for the sake of closing it. Just get it down to a zero balance, but you can keep it open. That's going to help you. And then account inquiries. So, how many times you've got someone checking your credit? You go to apply for that loan, you go to apply for a credit card, you go to apply for a lease, and they have done an inquiry. Account inquiries account for about 10% of your overall credit score. And then the final 10% is a mix of credit. So, they like to see that you've got mortgages, you've got car loans, you've got credit cards. They want to see that you've got a healthy mix of those. Just know that if your credit is really impacted, and it can be, I hear it all the time, I've always had a high FICO score. I've always been on time with my payments, and I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed that my credit score has plummeted to what it is. Just know, forgive yourself. It's part of divorce, but it will rebuild, and just come up with a plan to do the best you can, even next month, to rebuild it. If you're in a financial situation and that's not even possible, then maybe you set out 6 months from now, and you're going to say, in 6 months from now, I'm going to be able to start making minimum payments, whatever that is, to try to mitigate it. But hopefully this helped. Hit like, subscribe, and any comments that you have or questions, please drop them below so that I can make sure that I help you out. Take care.